All right, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be tackling a figure who kind of sits at this really interesting crossroads of philosophy and what we, I guess, now call political science and maybe even religious studies.
Yeah.
We're talking about Al-Farabi, that 10th century Islamic thinker.
Yeah, big name.
Yeah, huge. And specifically, we're zeroing in on his idea of falsafa madania. You could think of it almost like his big philosophy of society, his attempt to kind of bring it all together.
Exactly. And for Al-Farabi, you can't really separate understanding how individuals reach their full potential, what he called Kamal al-Insan, human perfection, from understanding the ideal structure of the Medina, the city, or state. So like the individual and the society are linked.
Gotcha. So it's not just about like personal betterment in a vacuum. There's this really crucial societal context. That Madania part really emphasizes the collective aspect.
Absolutely. It's right there in the name. So one pillar of falsafa madania is that individual flourishing. Yeah, you see echoes of Aristotle's ethics there. But then the second key pillar is this deep analysis of the Medina itself.
Okay, so we're getting into politics now.
Yeah, you definitely see the influence of Plato and Aristotle's political thought. But Al-Farabi's not just copying them, right? His big question is, how should a city be set up? How should it be governed so that it actually helps its people reach that individual perfection? And there's this fascinating extra layer. He saw the ideal city as reflecting the order of the cosmos.
Whoa, reflecting the cosmic order? That's a pretty big idea. It suggests that there's this like fundamental harmony the best society should aim for. But where does religion fit into all of this? Because like for many of us today, philosophy and religion are kind of separate things.
And this is where Al-Farabi gets really interesting. He puts religion, or Milla as he called it, right at the heart of his falsafa madania.
Okay, so it's not just an afterthought.
Not at all. He saw religion as a system of beliefs and actions. And here's the key. It's established by the society's founder, the first ruler. The purpose of religion is to guide the community towards that human perfection we were talking about. So it's not about abstract theological debates for Al-Farabi. It's a very practical tool for how society works and for individual well-being.
When you say tool, you mean he saw religion more as a means to an end, the end being this flourishing society rather than as like the truth on its own.
Exactly. That's the core of his argument. The main purpose he sees for religion is the societal one, getting people on the path to perfection, leading to both individual happiness and a city that functions well. It's a very pragmatic view of shared beliefs and practices. You could almost say instrumental.
That's going to be pretty unique for his time. Did it influence anyone who came after him?
Oh, big time. His ideas had a huge impact on Islamic thought. Thinkers like Ibn Bajjah and Ibn Rushd were shaped by him. And even Western scholars, when they later looked at his political philosophy, they couldn't ignore Al-Farabi. He really set the stage for how people thought about philosophy, politics, and religion interacting.
All right, so listeners, buckle up. We're about to go deep into this whole system Al-Farabi built. What are the key stops on this deep dive?
First, we got to unpack how he understood this philosophy of society thing. Then we'll look at what he called similitude. It's this link he draws between the individual person, the society they're in, and the whole cosmos. Pretty wild. And lastly, we'll dig into his take on religion and the role of the ruler in all of this.
And just to underscore, Al-Farabi was a pioneer here. He's the first major Islamic philosopher to create such a complete system. He was drawing on translated works of Greek thinkers, but he wasn't just copying Aristotle and Plato. He was taking their ideas and really making something new for the Islamic world of the 10th century.
Couldn't have said it better myself. He saw society as inherently collaborative. It's not just a bunch of individuals bumping around. It's about survival, sure. But even more, it's about reaching our highest potential. He believed that we humans can't fully become what we're meant to be. He uses the term fitra, if we're all alone. We need community to thrive. It's in our nature.
So this brings us to his idea of perfect societies, right? And he says the city, the Medina, is the smallest unit that can actually get to that perfect state. What's the ultimate point of these societies if they're so perfect?
Great question. Al-Farabi argued they have a telos, a purpose built in. And that purpose is to guide people towards true felicity. Think ultimate happiness, the kind that comes with reaching your full potential as a human. That's what the ideal society is for. Everything about its structure and how it's organized is pointing towards that.
Okay, let's break down that happiness idea a bit more. Because like today we think of happiness as, really personal, subjective. What did it mean for Al-Farabi? How did he tie it to this whole human perfection thing?
For him, and he's borrowing from Aristotle here, there's one ultimate happiness. That's the highest good, the best thing possible for every single human. Sometimes he talks about different levels of happiness, sure, but his main focus is on this ultimate happiness. It's about truly fulfilling what it means to be human. Now, here's where he takes a turn from Aristotle's eudaimonia. Al-Farabi mostly links this ultimate happiness to the afterlife. It's about the soul separating from the body.
So it's not just about living a good life here and now. There's this big afterlife aspect to his happiness idea.
You got it. Achieving that ultimate happiness, for him, depends on things happening during our life here on Earth. To get that, we need to understand how Al-Farabi defined human perfection. He saw us as unique. We exist between the physical world, our bodies and stuff, and this realm of the intellect. And that's because we can think rationally, which he thought continues after death.
So we're these physical beings, yeah, but we've also got this intellect that connects us to something bigger.
Right. Al-Farabi talks about this thing called the active intellect. It's immaterial, eternal, pure thought, basically. It doesn't directly do stuff to our bodies, but it influences our own intellects, our imaginations, hugely. And most importantly, it gives us the ability to think rationally in the first place. It gives us those basic concepts that let us understand the world in this abstract, universal way.
Okay, so being able to think abstractly, to grasp these big truths, that's what makes us perfect humans for Al-Farabi.
That's the core of it. Our natural purpose, that Talos word again, it lies in perfecting our ability to reason. We're born with the potential for it thanks to the active intellect, but it's on us to develop that potential by thinking, by learning. He believed that becoming an intellect in actuality, just like that active intellect, that's human perfection, and that's how we reach ultimate happiness.
So happiness is basically fulfilling our brain power completely.
That's a good summary. Now, whether this ultimate happiness can be fully reached while we're alive, body and soul together, or only after death when the soul's free, that's a bit open to interpretation in Al-Farabi's writing. But one thing's clear. Unlike mainstream Islamic theology, he says the afterlife is purely intellectual. It's about intellectual pleasures. You got to prepare for it during your life, and there are different degrees of happiness based on how excellent you became intellectually. No physical resurrection in his view.
So the afterlife isn't one size fits all. How well you develop intellectually down here affects your happiness up there.
Exactly. He suggests that your level of excellence during life, which he links to fulfilling certain natural duties, determines your felicity in the afterlife. And these duties vary depending on what you're naturally good at. He even describes how souls are gradually released and find happiness with others who are at a similar intellectual level.
Natural duties. That's intriguing. What kinds of things are we talking about here? Is it all intellectual stuff, or is there more to it?
He distinguishes between duties everyone in the ideal city should understand and do, and then specific duties based on your role and abilities in society. The common knowledge everyone needs is, well, pretty demanding. Knowing the first cause and its attributes, understanding immaterial beings like the active intellect and celestial bodies, grasping the natural world, the origin of humanity, the first ruler, those who came after, the nature of the excellent city itself and its happiness, it's a lot.
Whoa, that's like a PhD level curriculum. It sounds like only super smart philosophers could ever grasp all that. Does that mean only a select few get to be truly happy?
That's the million-dollar question, and Al-Farabi was definitely aware of it. He knew that only some people have the brains to fully get these concepts through philosophy. But he doesn't think happiness is limited to those brainiacs. He says these big truths can be known in two ways, either directly, as they really are, or through affinity and symbolic representation.
Okay, so symbolic representation, is that where religion comes back in? As a way for most people to access these big philosophical ideas, but in a way they can grasp.
Bingo. But before we go full-on religion, there are other things needed for happiness. Beyond the knowledge everyone needs, there are common activities. This is where you see Aristotle's influence again. It seems to be about practices that purify your soul while you're still alive, body and soul connected. He says that doing certain actions consistently can make your soul good and excellent. Kind of like practicing writing makes you a better writer.
So it's not just head knowledge, it's about having the right kind of character.
You got it. Al-Farabi, drawing on ancient medical ideas, thought that your physical health and your temperament could actually affect how well your mind works. So maintaining balance physically and in terms of moral virtues that helps you use your intellect more clearly and effectively. He even criticizes immoral cities, where people are driven by passions and base desires. He says nobody in those cities can be truly happy because they're diverted from their natural purpose, that telos.
So living virtuously, even if you're not doing it for purely philosophical reasons, it still helps get your soul ready for intellectual flourishing and ultimately for happiness.
That's the gist of it. Your character, your moral compass, is not the end goal of happiness, but it's a crucial step along the way. It helps your rational faculty work better. Finally, there's also specific knowledge and activities for different classes in society, or different jobs and professions. Al-Farabi believed everyone's born with certain skills and talents. That gives them a natural place and duty in the community.
Yes.
And when people fulfill that potential, it helps the whole society. It creates the foundation for everyone to pursue their ultimate telos.
It sounds like he imagined this really interconnected society where everyone's got a part to play in this big quest for happiness. And that takes us back to that similitude thing you mentioned earlier. The individual, society, and the whole cosmos, how are they linked?
Okay, so remember how we said Al-Farabi thinks the point of a perfect society is to help its members achieve happiness? Well, that has big implications for his whole philosophy of society. He argues that society can only be truly excellent. Fedil is the word he uses if it's working towards that natural purpose, that telos, of giving its members the means to reach individual happiness. That means the main job of government for him is to create opportunities for everyone to learn, to understand their duties, and then put that knowledge into practice.
And to get this across, he compares society to living things and even to the whole cosmos.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, at first glance, comparing how humans behave, and we have choices, right?
Right.
With the way nature works, which seems kind of predetermined, might seem strange. But Al-Farabi's not saying we don't have free will. He believed we do. But he also believed there's a natural ideal for humans. There's a good life and a bad life, longing to either happiness or failure. And that's where the comparison with organisms in the cosmos comes in. He sees them as perfect models for humans to follow, both individually and how we live together. Think of the cosmos as a perfectly functioning machine, each part doing its job flawlessly.
Perfect models in what sense? I mean, the cosmos and a living thing seem pretty different from a city-state.
He's basically applying Aristotle's idea of ergon proper function to the whole cosmos and everything in it. He thought the cosmos, since it was created by a perfect first cause, has the best possible structure. Everything in it has a specific role to play to keep the whole thing running smoothly. Now, everything else in the cosmos fulfills its function naturally, automatically. But humans, because we have reason and free will, we have to choose to do it. So we need to understand the cosmic order and our place in it. We need to know our ergon, our duty in this grand design. Again, knowledge is key for Al-Farabi.
So by figuring out our place in the cosmos, we can better understand our role in society and how to reach our own perfection.
That's it. But the analogy goes further. Both the cosmos and living things, they're complex. They've got all these different parts inside them. And each part contributes to the well-being of the whole, but each one does its own specific thing. He uses this to show how each person in society has a particular task based on their skills and natural inclinations. Just like the heart pumps blood and the kidneys filter it, different people have different roles that make the whole community work.
This sounds like it could get pretty hierarchical, everyone having a predetermined spot.
And yeah, Al-Farabi makes that comparison directly. He compares the ideal city to a healthy body. All the parts work together, but they're distinct, and some are more excellent than others. Just like the heart is the ruling organ, he sees a ruler in the city, and then others close to them in rank, and then everyone else with their specific functions. This shows his belief that society, like a body, is naturally hierarchical. People have specific roles based on what they're born with.
But this brings us back to that tension we talked about before. If being rational is our defining feature and perfecting that is our telos, how does that fit with the idea that some people are naturally smarter than others? Can everyone really reach happiness if some are just gifted with better brains?
This is where his understanding of human nature gets really important. He's drawing on ancient Greek medicine, especially Galen. They believe that your natural abilities are mostly determined by where you're born and your physical makeup, like the balance of elements in your body. The soul itself is immaterial, yeah. But as long as it's connected to the body, what it does, including thinking, is affected by our physical stuff. It works through our senses and imagination. So your temperament, your natural disposition, that plays a big role in how quick you are, how intellectually inclined you are. And that affects how well you can perfect your reason.
So basically, how smart you are comes down to your physical body. And that affects your ability to reach ultimate happiness.
That's what it seems like at first. But Al-Farabi says every human, as long as they're of sound mind, has what they need to go for that happiness. Even people who aren't naturally super brainy. He says everyone shares a basic innate character that makes them receptive to basic concepts and to working towards common goals. Then, individuals diverge based on their own unique characters. That leads them to specific concepts and roles.
Got it. So there's a baseline of shared understanding and stuff we all aim for, but then individual talents and abilities lead to different paths within society.
Exactly. And those common things everyone strives for, those line up with those prerequisites for happiness we were talking about. But remember, the intellectual bar seems pretty high. Al-Farabi deals with this by saying those common things can be known in two ways: directly, as they really are, or through affinity and symbolic representation. This is how he makes sure everyone has a shot at happiness, regardless of how smart they are.
So for those who can't grasp the really deep philosophical stuff directly, they can understand it through symbols and representations. This is where religion fits in, right?
Exactly. He sees it as society's duty, especially the rulers, to make sure everyone's taught these essential things in a way that works for them. And that's where religion, as the art of persuasion, comes in. It provides that system of symbols that lets everyone access the knowledge and practices they need for felicity. This also means the government's main job, for Al-Farabi, is to guide, teach, and habituate people.
It's a pretty paternalistic view of government, isn't it? Like a wise parent guiding their kids towards what's best for them.
You could definitely see it that way. Now, remember that innate character we talked about. Al-Farabi thought that just as organs have specific jobs in a body, each person has a natural place and ergon to fulfill in the organism of society. It's based on their talents. And fulfilling that potential doesn't just benefit society. It benefits the whole organism of the cosmos. So our duties aren't just to ourselves, they're to the community and even to this larger cosmic order. This naturally leads to hierarchy in society. Those with more intelligence and wisdom, they're naturally suited to rule and guide.
So in this perfect society, the rulers are the brainiest, wisest people. They're like the heart, guiding the rest of the body, the citizens, towards their proper function and, ultimately, happiness.
You nailed it. The ideal ruler for Al-Farabi isn't just a philosopher. They're also like a prophet, able to take these deep philosophical truths and translate them into a religion that can guide everyone.
So from most people's perspective, this religious teaching seems like divine revelation. But from the philosophical view, it's actually a carefully crafted system of symbols that represent those deeper truths.
Exactly. He acknowledges the divine aspect in the sense that it fits with his view of the cosmos. But philosophically speaking, it's not supernatural. It's a symbolic representation of metaphysics, natural philosophy, anthropology, and his whole philosophy of society. Religion, with its doctrines and laws, becomes the ruler's most important tool. And it's not a one-time thing. It's an ongoing project that continues after the first ruler. Later leaders, those high up in that intellectual hierarchy, they have to keep it going, develop it, spread the knowledge people need for happiness. They might even have to make new laws about things the first ruler didn't address.
So he's got this idea of the ideal ruler, but does he say what the best form of government is? Does he favor monarchy, for example, since there's this single wise leader at the top?
It's interesting. You might think he'd go for monarchy with his comparisons to the cosmos and the body and his focus on the first ruler, but he's actually a bit open-minded about the specific political structure. He seems to say that if one person has all the qualities needed, then yeah, they'd be the ideal leader. It's kind of like Plato's philosopher king idea.
Yeah.
But if there's no such person, he says a group of people with complementary skills should rule together. This tells us he's not so worried about the exact system. He's more interested in the big metaphysical principles and how they affect how humans organize themselves.
And when he talks about deficient cities, those that aren't ideal, he's still focused on knowledge and action, not just the form of government, right?
Right on. When he analyzes deficient cities, his criteria are always about knowledge and action, both the common stuff and the things specific to different classes. For example, he talks about necessary societies. They only care about the material well-being of their people, making sure they have the basics to survive. Now, you might think that's a good thing. But for Al-Farabi, it's not enough. It ignores the higher purpose of society, to help people reach their natural telos, to strive for intellectual and spiritual perfection.
So a truly excellent society has to do more than just keep people fed and housed. It has to actively guide them towards this ultimate happiness through a shared understanding of reality. And that's where religion comes in, right?
Absolutely. He concludes that the first ruler of the excellent city has to understand philosophy thoroughly. They need to grasp how the world is governed and act accordingly. And they need a common religion to bring people together, to harmonize their opinions and actions. That's how you create a well-ordered, cooperative society where everyone can help each other reach happiness.
This has been a mind-blowing deep dive into Al-Farabi's thought. It's amazing how he took ideas from the Greeks and combined them with his own context to create this vision of the ideal life, both individually and within society. And religion plays this central, although instrumental, role.
What's really fascinating is how he connects philosophy and religion. Philosophy, especially metaphysics, gives you the deepest understanding of reality, and that guides the intellectual elite towards happiness through, pure thinking. But religion acts as this bridge. It takes those complex truths and puts them into symbols and stories so that everyone else can understand. It guides the majority towards that same goal of happiness through shared beliefs and practices that the wise ruler establishes.
It's like this hierarchical but interconnected view of society. Everyone has a job to do, and they're guided by those with the most wisdom, all working towards the shared goal of perfection and happiness. The analogy of the city as a body, with the ruler as the guiding mind, really drives that home.
And don't forget that tension between the ideal of everyone reaching rational perfection and the reality that people have different intellectual abilities. Al-Farabi's solution, with the two ways of understanding truth directly through philosophy or symbolically through religion, is brilliant. It lets him address this fundamental challenge.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Al-Farabi's Falsafa Madaniya, it leaves us with a big question. Using this framework, how would societies today measure how well they're doing at helping people reach what they see as perfection and happiness? What role do all the different belief systems in our world play in that? Could Al-Farabi's view of religion as a tool for society, for bringing people together and giving them a sense of purpose, help us understand what's happening in our own world today? It's something worth thinking about. Thanks for joining me for this deep dive.